Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Fictional Activity with Q and Atra. I'm Q.
I'm Atra.
And tonight we are talking about something that I have been jonesing for so long.
You've mentioned it once an episode.
Yep, every time. Sex and relationships in a PG-13 environment, aka the DGB. DJB. I can English, I swear.
No, you can't. So that's not as loaded a topic as it comes across when you go into it, because everyone hears the word sex and they go, or something.
Except me, I'm going,
lines.
yeah.
But what it just means is relationships are happening. It's becoming more prevalent in character in the DJB. There's always been the stigma out of character of people adults doing adult things. But in character, it's becoming more prevalent, either because we have more actual couples later in their life in the DB and writing together, or just because it's becoming less stigmatized, either through forced relevance or just passage of time. So it's becoming more of a thing in the writing.
And speaking of couples, we are joined tonight by Leeadra. Leeadra, say hello.
Hello.
Yep, Leeadra is Q's better and proper half.
True facts.
Yep.
So, Leeadra, as per our usual shtick, why don't you tell us a little about your character, background, shoe size, that kind of business?
Well, Leeadra is a female Pantoran. Force user. I don't know, you gave me a list of things that I should say, and I probably forgot half of them, so.
Well, what's Leeadra's background? So, what did she do before coming to the DJB? What brought her here?
So basically, she was in the police academy on Pantora, and got kicked out like a week before graduation because she has a very short temper when it comes to people making short jokes. Short temper. Anyway, packed up her things, went home, and found out that her house had burnt to the ground and all of her family was dead.
Dun,
very,
dun,
very,
dun.
Very stereotypy. But at this point, she decided she was going to go as far away from Pantora as she could get, and just happened into DJB, that word, space, and
one of
eventually,
us.
Yes, indeed, ran into Q eventually, I believe, if I remember correctly, and just kind of ended up, hey, I like you. Sure, I'll come with you. That sounds good.
And then she became my apprentice, and all was well.
Are we sure there were no guns to your head during this process?
Well, hell, what was your Gemso was her primary lightsaber form, and we picked that because the only way Q could train her was by shooting at her.
Right.
So that became a thing.
So the fun thing is you guys are an out-of-character couple, and in character, not very much not so. So you're kind of the reverse end of the spectrum of what people kind of expect is going on in the club, where anything that's in character is apparently out of character as well. There's that
I am
separation.
Fictionally fucking someone else.
Yeah. It's the hardest thing to do in any DM. Like, it's been said by people we know that separation of character is very important. So, wow, that's going to be great on the podcast. My Outlook account settings are out of date apparently, and Windows chose now to inform me.
Oh, lovely.
I hope you all enjoyed that Bing, courtesy of Microsoft.
Didn't hear a bing, so you're safe.
Oh, you guys didn't. The podcast recording will.
Sweet.
Things are my favorite.
So is that something you guys, just my personal curiosity, is that something you guys ever think about? Does that enter your mind at all?
So in my case, I actually have experience with writing relationships between characters with someone else who's in a relationship, and that actually caused me a bit of drama at the time because that person's significant other got jealous, for lack of a better term. Now, between me and Leeadra, I don't see a problem with it. I haven't heard anything. At least she hasn't told me anything. What do you think?
I don't know. Personally, I don't see an issue with it. Like Atra was saying, separation of character and the person who's writing the character is definitely an important distinction. But
I mean, it's easy to get lost in that because a lot of people use their character as a projection of self rather than writing from a point far removed from who and what they are.
oh yeah, and it's definitely easy to see that connection in writing your character, but at the same time, especially with how Q writes, it's it's very much distinct from him. Like there are definitely super similar aspects, but at the same time, Q is in character. Q is totally different than Q, my husband, out of character.
So you're saying he's not a red-skinned, blue-haired mouthpiece from, in my opinion, the bowels of hell?
God, I wish I had that
Exactly.
body.
All right. So before we get too delving into the character stuff, I want to just take a step back and be like, why are we talking about this? Why is this relevant to writing in the DJB? Well, because
it's fun.
that and boys and girls, Star Wars did it. So, Lost Stars, one of my favorite of the new canon novels, has not one, but two scenes of the lovemaking. And you know what? They treated it very respectfully. It's a young adult novel, so obviously you're not going to see the terms you would see in the romance novel section of your local chapters or Indigo.
Deep
And
throbbing member.
if it was that innocent. and it's respectful. It's essentially what it comes down to, and what I like to call, and what everybody pretty much calls, is the fade to black. This happens a lot in PG-13 movies and other things. And I'm sorry, while Anakin may or may not, according to who you choose to believe, and I for one do not believe the slave on Tatooine, was an immaculate conception, but that doesn't mean everyone in Star Wars is immaculate conception. These are adults. These are adults who procreate. These are adults who have bloodlines and children.
People wear underwear.
And people in space wear underwear. Contrary to what George Lucas may or may not want. So that can become a major driving character, especially as the character you're writing is growing older. My character, for instance, is older than me, but he just hit 30. So having a family is something that would feasibly have happened in his life at this point, unless he was so caught up in darkety dark sable blackness that he couldn't see past his nose. It could happen. You fall in love with the dark side, man. You don't need no other woman. Or man. Thing.
I just have so many jokes I could say to that, but I'm not going there.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, the problem is you don't want to, and feel free to not have me drive this entire conversation.
I don't know.
For me, the biggest misstep when writing relationships in any fiction, regardless of the setting or where you are, is using it as a crutch, using it as a cornerstone or a reason for something, rather than having it the result of everything else. It shouldn't be convenient. It shouldn't be a plot point for the sake of being a plot point. And that's just my view on it.
Oh no. Now the way I see it's also a good way to look at the personal life of the characters rather than just because every fiction competition we have is all like some mission to Munalist, or you guys are freeing these slaves from these slavers, or you're going to kill some inquisitors or some resistance folks.
You never see the slice of life. You always see the action scene.
You see, it's that slice of life that I love, which is one of the reasons that I love our little in-character relationship we got going.
I would
I
like
am
to
totally-
plead Stockholm Syndrome on that one.
I am totally in lesbians with you, Atra. You can't deny it.
Yeah, I can't deny the fact that you're in lesbians with me. I know.
At least you all are okay with it.
At least you're okay with it. Yeah, that was a fun meeting.
But where were we going with this? I had a train of thought, but it left the station without me.
If you managed to catch up with it, it was probably related to about 4 past not using it as a trope.
For those of us playing the home game, give us an example of using it as a trope.
Pretty much just being like using it as an example of I'm such a bad guy that I walk into this place, I kill everything, and then I bed this woman.
Oh, so Geralt syndrome.
Geralt syndrome, sure, let's go with that. For those of you who don't know, that's The Witcher we are referencing. It's a wonderful novel and game series.
I've never even played the game, but I've just seen enough of it that I can make a general guess.
I mean, if you want to go back further, it's Conan syndrome, Conan the Barbarian. We want to hear the lamentations of their women as they're driven before us. They're not a prop. It's not something that is used to spur on your character. Like I said, it is the result of actions being taken. It needs to be organic, it needs to make sense, and it needs to add to the character. For me, it's motivation. The relationship side of it. Like, just why is you? And a lot of times we are defined by our relationships, and not just sexual or boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, but family, friends, any connection that is formed, any bond that is made, it has a recurring, as Peanut Gallery adds, rivals is something that could be thrown into that.
Yeah, and even friendly relationships. Someone asked me recently why I haven't been doing a whole lot of clan fictional competitions, and it's just, well, fictionally, Q doesn't have the same connections as you guys, so you wouldn't jump in.
No, and again,
So it's that in-character connection that needs to be there for that body of work to take place.
it's a driving force, really, in a lot of people and the actions they take. I hate to fall back on it, but the Helen of Troy syndrome.
Where everyone wants one woman and we're going to fight to the death for her?
Yeah.
Sounds like good times to me. I don't know what y'all talking about.
It's the trope that desire and want overrides reason.
And it sometimes does.
Oh, for sure, depending on the character.
Mm-hmm. It's when it gets uncharacteristic for the person that it's a little bit not so fun.
Yeah, never shoehorn. That's a rule of fiction in all things.
I try not to shoehorn, but I do write myself into a lot of corners.
Yes. Well, it happens. Hey, I'm going to throw my shoe at the Grand Master.
I would totally do that.
And hope he doesn't kill me out of spite.
I will throw it from orbit. Extra stinky. And also out of range of his force powers.
Unlimited cosmic power, itty bitty living space.
So the best part of this topic I find is that, even with Fade to Black, a lot of this has to fit into a PG-13 environment. Now, granted, some competitions in some areas you can just uncheck that little box that says do not publish, so that, hey, if whatever you're doing allows it, you can do some adult content. We don't want any hardcore porn going on. Well, some of us don't. Some of us are just twiddling our fingers like Mr. Burns going, excellent. And
I mean, and you got to be careful with that because that was a major issue. I had a grader come to me and explicitly tell me he was very uncomfortable with a unshared piece of fiction that was submitted to his competition, and what avenues were available to him so that he didn't have to be put in that situation again. It was very graphic and well beyond his comfort zone. And pretty much I told him that if that's something that you are now aware of can happen, and there's no rules explicitly in the club against it. It's not recommended, obviously, but anything front facing, community facing has to be PG-13. But when you uncheck that box, some people can go into more extremes. So the only thing you can really do is throw it in your competition details, explicitly saying if that's something you're not personally comfortable reading, please keep it X, keep it Y, keep it whatever.
Yeah. So in my case, and I saw someone else do it, so I just kind of mimicked it. I'm okay with adult content in my fiction competition, so I always put a little, what's it called, bullet point that says, hey, if you're going to do adult content, just make sure you uncheck that box. I'm otherwise okay reading it, so on and so forth.
Yeah, but a lot of your competitions are relationship focused. It's meeting people, it's who are the strongest connections with your characters. So that's something that could foreseeably happen in an entry for one of your competitions. Whereas somebody who's expecting you to be raiding the boss room isn't expecting you to be raiding the boss room's pantry. And by pantry, I mean their linen closet.
AKA the panties drawer. Sorry, I went straight from pantry to panties.
Yep.
Color me surprised.
Oh boy.
So yeah, you don't want to make people uncomfortable because that's not what it's about. It's about writing fiction. It's about enjoying what you're doing, but also it's easy to forget that as you've grown up, your writing has grown up. I've been writing since I was 12. I am very much not writing the way I was when I was 12, and I'm not writing the things I was writing when I was 12. There was that awkward phase in the middle adolescence where I was trying to write the things I'm capable of writing now, and I was not good at it, and I would not wish that on my worst enemy. But it's natural to start going into that stuff as it becomes more of a reality of your life. You want to write about what you're familiar with.
Oh yeah, and it's that life experience that gives you that familiarity. So once you have it, it becomes something you can write about, and when you can write about it, you tend to want to more and more.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, Star Wars episodic content is the story of one family's generation after generation effing up the galaxy and making us all have their problems.
And their babes.
And that wouldn't happen without children. That wouldn't happen without coitus and
Sexy
relationships.
times.
Ben Solo was not
And
born out of a
doggy style.
tube. He was not born immaculate. As much as he idolizes Vader, he is not that similar.
He also is not the phenomenal saber duelist that he thinks he is. But let's not go there.
Well, maybe if he used a lightsaber that didn't have a crossguard saber, he might be
Maybe
more
if he
adept.
maybe if he wasn't a whinging little ninny. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that aloud?
Yeah. Well, and it's not to confuse anyone. It's not that you can't write things you're not familiar with. It's just most people are more comfortable doing it.
Yeah, that comfort level gets really iffy when it comes to certain things, which I want to talk about in a later episode. Just talking about taboo writing topics.
I thought we talked about that briefly.
Yeah, before, but we could go a lot more into it. Well, hell, if we want, we can talk about the sexual side of it now, since we're in the PG-13 realm, or the relationships and that thing.
That's definitely taboo topics. I mean, it needs to make sense in your writing. I don't want to be reading this grand battle sequence, and every 3 seconds your eyes meet and the world slows, and you wonder if you're going to make it out to the other side to brush your lips against hers once more, feel her hair tickling your nose, and just no! Okay? You can have that brief little exchange going into the battle and be like, I am concerned, is this going to happen? Or maybe you are dying in that grand battle. Your final thoughts, obviously it matters. Your relationship matters. Hey, I'm dying. What am I leaving behind? There's so
But
much
when you
left unsaid. But when it's every 3 fucking sentences.
when you're panting and wheezing in the middle of combat, you're not going to be thinking, damn, I'd really like to tap that one more time. You're thinking, God, what the fuck? What was that? Jesus, that blaster bolt came really close. God damn.
Is that my blood? I mean, and that's not to say that I could devise a prompt that would require you to do all those things. And we could just call it cheesy popcorn romance flick 101 and see what comes of it. But
Cherry blossom romance forever.
it's not what I would call the realistic situation.
For whatever reason, my Arnold comes off as this really shitty Scottish. I don't know why. Anyway.
I mean, Leeadra, as a relatively newer member of the club and less integrated with it as some other members, what's your view on that kind of writing? Is it something that you think should relationships be taboo between characters? As someone who's on the outside looking in, is this the issue we all think it is?
I don't know. Personally, relationships are very much a part of life. I mean, and like you guys were saying, not necessarily romantic relationships or sexual relationships, but I don't know where I
Is
was
he
going
making
with this.
faces off camera? Is this something I'm going to have to deal with? Stop messing with my guest.
I don't know where I was going with this now.
I'm facing away from her, so if I'm making faces, she's really talented.
I mean, if somebody came up to you and said, Q is writing about being in a relationship with one of Atra's NPCs, aren't you upset about that? Like, would that, like, how would you handle that?
I don't know. Personally, I can see, like I've said, I can see the difference between Qyreia in character and my husband out of character. Like that's yeah, I mean it's not that oh goodness.
It's all right. I get what you're trying to say. It's not the same thing. There's no
Right.
correlation there.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Or as I like to say, it's fiction. And I'm
Yeah.
not the only one that feels that way, judging by some of the PMs I've gotten in the past.
well, it's a dangerous slope. I can't really touch on this topic without touching on my own history in the club, and it's not a place I like going. But that line between, yeah, it's okay because it's only fictional, only works when the people involved believe that as well. So it's not to say that the stigma isn't deserved for reasons.
Oh no, because people will cross that line sometimes.
Yeah.
And it tends, like for example, I don't think Leeadra is so worried because as much as I love to whisper sweet nothings into your ear, she knows I'm not actually going to try and bed you.
Yeah. It's just critical that everybody knows what's going on. In that situation, going into it, I had said, well, yeah, it's just writing fiction. It's all right. Like, do what you want, what makes sense for your character. But then when there were some mistells And PM started coming to light. It's like, okay, well, apparently I'm the only one who was on the fictional board, so it can get ugly, and it can get ugly very fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as there's a phrase out there, and it says that betrayal rarely begins in the bedroom. And it's a dangerous thing to get into, and it's what makes it's really the danger of the whole thing is that where do you draw that line?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're going for a coffee date? Who with? What kind of coffee? What are you wearing?
But yeah, it's
Coffee.
I just don't want to go into dark territory with this, but really it's the difference of be smart. Don't it's another person's character and it's your character. They're a writer, you're a writer, and make sure that disconnect is a disconnect. Or, preferably, write with NPCs.
NPCs are fun.
NPCs are safe.
You don't need a safe word with an NPC.
Just pray they're not wearing red. Red
Is that a
shirt
Star
joke. That's a red shirt joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to inject Star Trek into your Star Wars.
Man, I'm more of a next generation person where the red shirt doesn't mean too much.
Yeah. I mean, don't shoot, like, we come back to it, don't shoehorn it into your character. If you're going to write relationship, make it mean something, don't make it throwaway. Make it a driving force that affects the decision making that's going on behind the scenes towards what your character is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely a theme that I get with Q and Qyreia, is that's a really big driving force behind literally everything that Q does. Is how is this going to affect my relationship with her? How is this going to affect our lives as a whole?
Poor girl's got relationship issues.
Yeah, and that's a big driving force for Qyreia Ronan, the character.
Yeah, I think that's who she was talking about, not me personally. Unless that's what you were getting at, in which case, carry on.
I'm agreeing just in case.
Okay.
But that's the dark side of it. Really, the upside is it creates such a breadth of options and motivations for characters. It's a lot of fun to have your character in a relationship. It's not something I wrote about all that often in initial fictions, but as I grew older, it's something I started thinking about. And I said, well, what reason is there for my character not to be in a relationship? Is it out of character to be in one? Plus, having a kid is, I've had one. Maybe I enjoy making my character suffer. And I know what that suffering is like, the sleepless nights, the incessant crying, and the things you see and you can never unsee.
Projectile puke, or poop, or both.
At the same time!
If only.
Cleanup would be so much easier that way.
Yep. So at the end of the day, really, and this is the rule of thumb, if you're going to write a relationship and you're going to make it prevalent to your character, do it right. Do it at the right times, in the right situations. Don't
do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I found when it comes to that, because a lot of writers do take real life experience and use it for their stuff. I've seen and done a lot of things, so I can take a lot of that experience and use it towards different projects or different aspects. There is also that kind of like with relationships, you have to have that disconnect as a reader, and not like, let's say I were to write some dark and kinky shit. I may not be personally into that, but the character is. So that's something that needs to be noted as a reader that not everything you read reflects the author. I mean, not everyone should have to give a friggin' disclaimer at the beginning, but it's something that should be noted along the same lines.
Warning, my character is a depiction of a fictional creation. It is not, nor will it ever be, me.
All right. And I've seen people demonized. I have heard stories of people being demonized, and I've been in several clubs, not just Star Wars, different writing circles. I've been doing this for a while. Not as long as you, unfortunately. I've only been doing it since I was about 18.
I would say fortunately.
I missed the Harry Potter fanfic phase.
Oh dear God.
You laugh, but that's where I began. Warner Brothers Harry Potter forums on their official website was the first forum I ever wrote on.
Oh, and hey, that's there's nothing wrong with that. And I've read some very good fan fiction out there. But just and I think it's part of it's that anonymity of the internet. People think they can get away with shit that is not kosher. And that demonization is such utter bullshit. And I've talked to these people, and it pisses me off so much that these other folks got away with trying to paint these people, not the characters, but the people, as some sort of
something lesser.
Yeah, some sort of deviant that should be shunned from society. And it's wrong on a moral level, on a social level, and I would rather associate with the author than with the person who's pointing these fingers, because that's not kosher. It's not right.
Well, I'm not going to jump on this conversational bandwagon because my sociology term paper was the dehumanization of society through electronic media. So I could go on and on about this because I've researched it thoroughly. And the moral of the story is, when you are a faceless void writing on the internet, you will do the worst of humanity because there's no repercussion. There's no cause and effect. Some people go for that. Don't shame it.
Hey, I wouldn't do it. Someone wants to, go for it. They're just not my thing.
Yeah,
that's why I went with a sexy red-skinned lady who does not have a massive bust. That's one thing I deviated from when it comes to most fictional characters that are female.
Yeah, a lot of people do that, and I mean, that gets into the way people write. A guy will often write, we covered this in a previous episode, a guy will generally bring the reader's narrative focus to the assets and features that they themselves like to focus on, whereas they wouldn't do that with their own male character.
Cough, tits and ass cough.
Yeah, more or less. She tiddled her way down the stairs. It's natural.
I really want to read some sort of fictional jiggle physics just for the sake of saying I have. Oh boy. So God, I was gonna say something, but that damn train, I just can't seem to get the.
I'm a terrible conductor.
Yeah, but you look good in that uniform.
Not everybody can pull this off. But it really comes down to, for me, and what I really like doing is that it's forces me to think about more than Atra when I'm writing. The fact that I have two characters in relationships. I have Qyreia and Atra are both spoken for fictionally, and it weighs on every decision you make. It weighs on what narrative directions you do and how your character interacts with others, because suddenly you're not thinking about how does this affect Atra. You're thinking about how does this affect so-and-so, or how does this affect like their relationship. So
oh hell, I mean, case in point, Atra and Q getting it on.
Yeah,
like the characters, not us.
Yeah, we don't talk about Friday nights in Vegas.
But I mean, that was the thing that happened. It was a case of infidelity. And I mean, does it make Q a sleut or does it make Atra a sleut? Are either of them sleuts? To be fair, both of them were under the influence of a Zeltron drug, the what was it called? Elixir of Infatuation. So they kind of have some plausible deniability for both of them, although Atra is severely less apologetic about it than Q kind of expected.
When you spend most of your formative years in a sensory deprivation chamber, we'll see how good your societal understanding is.
Fair enough.
That's bad. You shouldn't talk to people like that. Why? Didn't you learn this growing up? No.
I learned pain.
And suffering and dead parents. It is the color of my soul.
Oh my god.
I see a black door and I want to paint it oblivion.
I knew there was a reason CNS didn't have its black crayons anymore.
I used them all. And when I left, I took the box. They're all mine now. I don't know. I mean, whenever
I'm
somebody...
fucking dying over here.
I have my moments.
It's a good thing I'm on push to talk. Holy shit.
Yeah, well, you could say Atra's been crawling in his skin. The wounds will not heal. No, it's been a lot of fun writing relationships. I think about things that I wouldn't personally think about. I mean, as a single male in the DJB, I can say out of character, I'm probably getting away with a lot more than other people would be getting away with, judgmentally speaking, just because that's been the stigma, that's been the go-to gossip. So it's like the thing where it's just the society of the DB is more accepting of guys doing whatever than, I would say, girl writers, which is becoming more of an issue because the girl writer population is increasing. It's becoming more visible.
Especially as folks are recognizing that there is a larger female population of fans, nerds, geeks, whatever you want to call us or them. Yeah. Folks call me her or she enough that fuck it, I'll go with it. But yeah, it's something that has to be accounted for, and you can't apply different standards because of a different gender.
Yeah, no, but it's so easy to fall back on that double standard. It's just humans are going to be human.
To which I fall back on my point of rage that I had earlier.
Yeah, and we should really jot this down for a more lengthy discussion. I mean, I think that is probably a very prevalent topic, period, not just in writing, but in life right now, is the double standards in life.
Double standard rage. RAEG.
Sure, let's go with that. Mm-hmm. I just think that people shouldn't look at somebody writing character relationships and automatically assume something else is going on there. That shouldn't be your default thought process. You should be looking at these characters and not seeing the writer behind them, but seeing the characters, seeing the story that is happening, and where is it going? Where is it leading? Where did it come from?
Where did they go?
But Cotton Eye Joe is not going to tell you.
Now, I'm going to kind of pan this both to you and Leeadra because, yeah, well, I want to get Lee in this too.
No, I'm yelling because Outlook again popped its annoying head up. I'm going to deal with this later. I'm sorry.
I was like, really? You're going to let us talk? You shitbag.
Yeah, no.
Anyway.
Leeadra, go. I'm just saying the title for this episode is going to be Sex and Relationships in a PG-13 section or setting with guest star Outlook.
So, and kind of coming off that whole gender and different standards and viewpoints, and this has been discussed before, when I came into the club, a lot of folks thought I was a girl. there's still a few folks who think I'm a girl. Case in point, someone was hitting on me in one of the TG channels last night. That was fun. At least it looked like it. Anyways, I digress. Now, did you guys see an interest in, especially as a Zeltron, I almost want to say, that there was a pointed interest in my character based on those qualities?
I mean, again, I think we're straying off the path of relationships.
Well, kind of. Even in character, was there anything that you guys saw, either through Telegram or run-ons or anything like that? Because there's a lot that doesn't get said to a person straight up. Like when I talked to you initially, when you were the caster as Qyreia, I'm like,
Quester.
caster, quester, freaking Quebec, whatever.
I didn't see anything because I personally, while I'm aware of the Zeltron Vegas party planet stigma, I've written
That is racism.
I've written Zeltrons in the past, so I just looked at it as any other character just because I've had that experience.
Oh, and I loved your portrayal of that scientist lady.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Leeadra, do you have opinions, feelings, thoughts?
Sometimes.
did it hurt?
I mean, how would you expect to be treated? How would you want to be treated if you were to engage in writing a relationship for your character?
Well, I mean, currently I am very fictionally single as fuck, but
Wow, that sounds aggressively.
For a while, she wanted Q to be her girlfriend.
that's not entirely true.
Not entirely
Mostly.
untrue.
Anyway, no, I feel like part of the issue with people assuming there's something going on other than on a fictional level is because although I know both Q and I find it a little easier to distinguish between ourselves and the characters we're writing about, because it is so common for people to put a lot of themselves into the characters, it kind of it leans towards and lends to people just assuming that others are words English.
She's having a hard time with the train today too.
No, I have the thought in my brain. It's just not translating well into English.
Probably
It's,
easier to just summarize it as role playing versus writing.
Well, right. And that's just because people put a lot of themselves into the characters doesn't mean that the characters 100% reflect the people and what's going on with the people writing them.
Exactly. I think that's really the nail on the head in terms of the out of character views on relationships.
So moving back away from the whole, out of character versus in character business, because I think we've beaten that dead horse enough with its own leg.
Exactly. So let's focus on how to write it and how to do it well.
How to write sex and do it well. Got it. Well, first, when a mommy person and daddy person, or sometimes a mommy person and a mommy person, or a daddy person and a daddy person really like each other, and sometimes like a third party as well, or a fourth, sometimes a fifth if they're really drunk.
Anyway.
from a writing perspective, I'd say just don't be careful with your phrasing. Just remember this is the PG-13. You want to go for that fade to black moment, but you don't want to. I mean, you don't want to cold shock it. You don't want to just cut it off suddenly, shockingly.
And then they all fucked.
Yeah, you don't want to be like, he enters the room, turns, their eyes meet, his hand reaches out, fade to black.
Show don't tell.
Yeah, like there's nothing there. Really, I can't recommend it enough. Lost Stars is a fantastic Star Wars novel, not just because it gives you the boots on the ground perspective for both the Rebels and the Imperials, and the Imperial perspective being more important because it's the Imperial perspective throughout episodes 4, 5, and 6, which is great to hear. I mean, it shows the people, the Alderaanians in the Empire reacting to Alderaan going boom. But beyond all of that goodness is the relationship between two of the characters and how well it wrote them having always had this underlying banter and relationship between them, and it finally culminates in a moment when they meet again and they perform the deed. And it's really
The horizontal mumbo.
it's wonderful how the wordplay they used on it didn't make it seem like a stigma. It didn't seem like, oh, this doesn't belong in what I'm reading. It was warm language. It was
You
soft.
could say it was moist.
And it pretty much just it brought these two characters together in a good moment that was good for their character building. And then they moved on after. That's where they ended the chapter. That was your fade to black. This is where it ends, and then it comes to the morning after in the next chapter. And they didn't dwell on it. They didn't be like, oh my god, I can't believe we just did that. This is a Star Wars book and we just did that. It just no, it was like, this is a thing that happened. The bond is strengthened, and then they kept moving. It wasn't a hitch in the road. It didn't drag them down.
Well, the bond can only get stronger.
The bond is James.
Don't let James hear that. He's already got a big enough head from what I hear.
All of it well deserved.
Man's a genius.
I mean, as to the point that's been made to us, it's the Disney universe. Let's look at the Disney movies. Ariel had a kid. It happens. The Disney movies, things are going down.
She didn't even wear pants.
Yeah, she wasn't wearing pants when she got
was wearing
legs for the
nothing
first
but
time.
a seashell bra for like most of the movie. What
Yeah.
the hell, censorship? I want to see some black bars across them titties.
Wow.
I'm going no holds barred tonight.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But it's one of the things about saying PG-13 is your limit. There's actually a lot that you can do with PG-13. Your average everyday daytime television is PG-13, and that'll get you a long, long ways.
Yeah. And what's really amusing about PG-13 is that it has more to do with violence than anything else. For PG-13, it's usually if it says the F word more than once, it's an automatic rating for PG-13. You can have nudity in terms of like butts and that kind of stuff.
Tasteful side boob.
That is also permissible. It's just it's hard to put a finger on it because they've been pushing and pushing and pushing. Like, let's be honest, the first several Star Wars movies were PG, and that was just because PG-13 wasn't a thing yet. Since PG-13 became a thing, all of the Star Wars movies have been PG-13.
Oh, yeah, and there's also been a cultural shift since then. There's also the worst piece of profanity that was in the whole original trilogy was one use of the word damn by Luke when he was, what was it, on Bespin, I think, fighting Vader?
No.
Because they're cutting through the cables, and he goes, "Damn!" I don't know. It's been a minute, but yeah, the perceptions of violence, and I mean, let's not even forget that Luke and Leia are brother and sister, and they kiss a few times during that series. And
Yeah,
it's
but
not like, oh, you're my brother. I love you. It's come here, baby.
they didn't decide the brother thing until episode 6, and you don't know when in the script period they decided that. I mean, some people give them the benefit of doubt and say that came up between episodes 5 and 6. Others don't give them that benefit.
I mean, Han or Luke, doesn't really matter. It'd have been hot either way. And we just lost half our fan base right there.
Uh-huh.
Q is okay with incest. What the hell?
I mean, love is an open door, but as
Don't
Disney tells it in Frozen.
don't start. Lee loves that song.
Really?
I don't know what you're talking about. Innocent face.
Uh,
Yeah, we've karaoke'd that a couple times.
mm-hmm. I mean, it's really hard to quantify what you can get away with. I mean, Star Wars gets away with a hell of a lot of swearing just because it's not human swear words. It's not English swear words or French swear words or anything like that. They made up nonsensical words to which you put to great effect.
Of which Q knows a majority
Yes.
of the Star Wars.
Yes, he knows them all. But where it gets really complicated is rating systems are different for every country. Canada's rating systems are different from America's rating systems. And then America versus across the pond are even more different. So where do you draw that line? And I would hazard,
Nipples.
to me, where I draw the line at what I think would be permissible in a PG-13 setting is groping. Essentially anything past first base is unless you just really imply it craftily, sneakily, one might have you. You're not going to pull a Trump. You're going to say the hand disappeared beneath the fabric. That's it. There, you're done. That's PG-13. That's safe. But
saying that you diddled her skittle
yeah,
like it's a freaking cat in a hat riddle, you know, it's
yeah, diddling the
going-
volcano can only get you so far. You're going to get burned.
So case in point, I've got that run on for Q, and her and Kira do the shag nasty. It's very heavily implied. I do a fade to black, and the next morning they're both naked in bed. Again, I don't say, you know, I don't detail the contours of their respective physical forms, but I do mention that Kira puts her hand on the bare red skin.
Yeah. So again, it's all about think of it from a camera perspective. The narrative words you're using are the camera. It's what they see. I'm sure they can imagine beyond what you're telling them, but that's really on them. And that's your own fault, viewers at home, for what you infer from what we write. I'm watching you. And judging you. And we all know Rey and Finn are going to get it on. Episode 8. I'm waiting for it.
Jesus.
I'm waiting for it.
Oh, Rey and Finn, yes.
No, Poe and Finn. Sorry, did I say Rey? My apologies. Poe
You
and
did
Finn.
say Rey.
Poe Finn for life. I mean,
You see,
no, when they talked to the actor behind Poe, his name eludes me at this moment in time, he said that while there was no written relationships in the script, he had a relationship in mind for every scene in which he was featured, and I did not see any scenes with Rey. Case
I'm
in
shaking
point.
my head. You can't see it, but I'm shaking my head.
Just saying. Bro.
You fangirls.
Bro. He's the whole world, bro.
Yeah, I saw that little YouTube video of bro rape on YouTube. So
Bro rape. No, there's bro love. That's a song. I don't know what you're talking about.
oh, bro, Guy Love from
Yeah.
Scrubs.
Oh yeah, right. That's a good one.
But that is definitely not Poe X Finn kind of thing.
No.
That is totally platonic. What you guys are talking about is I'm not going there because I could use some really gratuitous lingo.
I mean, that's case in point to relationships is you have the shippers. It's in the word, relationship. You have the movies and people are making their pairings. It's part of the narrative, whether you want it to be or not. So the fact that it's addressed in our fictions, it's not a big deal as long as you don't make it a big deal and you put it in the right spot.
And then you got the conspiracy theorists, which I always love listening to.
Yes.
That heavy duty sarcasm there.
If my character makes eye contact with yours and makes squinty eyes, it means I, the writer of Atra, totally want some of that. You would be wrong.
Are you sure? Because they did it once. Anyway.
I'm pretty sure.
But not 100%.
Anyways, this has been an interesting conversation, really. It's one that could go on. How should I phrase this? Tangents for days. Lots of ranting, lots of frayed nerves, because I think it's something that, as people who have written about relationships in the club, it's something that has really affected our experience in either small ways or large ways. It's something that, unfortunately, we've had to be aware of.
Yeah.
Because there are people who can't draw those lines. There are people who will take even something as simple as friendships in the club and turn it into something that, even one-sided, is something that it really shouldn't be. And it can get uncomfortable for people. It can get, case in point with some of the COJ cases, it can get really, really big and not good.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of the issue comes from, is people don't want that happening. People are either they expect it to happen or they don't, they're afraid of it happening. So it's become this stigmatized taboo thing. You don't write about player characters having relationships with one another because you don't want to step into that minefield.
Yeah. But the thing is, at that point, you're kind of doing that police state where you're charging someone with the crime before it happens. And that's bad for the community. That's bad for freaking art. And I wanted to give this little blurb before we ended the episode real quick, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
I was this, and I apply this as much to my writing as my drawing or anything else, but I was taking a drawing class back in the day, and long story short, we had this project, and I did this kind of representation of this song title that, it might not have been agreeable to everyone, but I thought, hey, this is badass. This is actually good. It turned out well for once. Sweet. And I'm showing it to the class, and they go, do you really think you should show this? Someone might be offended. And I kind of did a double take and go, this is my art. If someone doesn't like it, they can go look at something else. And that goes along with fiction and art in the DJB. And so long as it's following the rules.
There's a time and
ladies
place
gents.
for everything.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But don't fucking look at it if you don't like it. It is not the artist's responsibility to suit your tastes.
I mean, you're never going to please everybody. There's always going to be somebody who finds something to be taken, to take to task, to create a crusade out of.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of my soapbox that I was on earlier, but I definitively wanted to leave that here before we finished off tonight because
Yep.
this is something that is near and dear to me because like I just said, it happened to me personally,
Yep.
and so
I understand.
uh,
At the end of the day, don't be a douche. Okay? don't be a mini douche. Don't be a douche canoe. Don't be the douche factory. Just stay the hell away from the douche. Okay?
be excellent to each other.
Rock on.
Oh, I was going for Bill and Ted, but
So was I.
oh, that sounded more like a
I was doing the guitar shred. Come on, man.
wasn't that a Wayne's World thing?
No, they both did it.
Oh, because Bill and Ted to me was like be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
Yeah, but they also did the guitar shreds. Oh man.
Ah, okay. Dude,
You hurt me.
it's,
You hurt me.
it's-
This is a betrayal. We can't be.
I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That was it, and that was years ago.
We can't be lesbians anymore. I'm sorry.
No.
No!
And I'm sorry to you, Leeadra. He's all
'Cause
yours
now
now.
you're my new target. I mean, relationship. I mean,
All right. I hope
what's our safe
everybody-
word?
Our safe word is that's a wrap. I hope you've all had
Thanks
an
for joining.
enlightening evening.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Leeadra, thank you for being here.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I kind of didn't have a choice. Being
Wow.
married to you and whatnot.
You always have a choice, Leeadra. Don't let him tell you otherwise.
Yeah, and you know,
Don't
No,
drink
no,
his
no, no.
tea. And good night.